Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, everyone, and welcome back to the Ummahpreneur live podcast. And on this very special episode, I have with me Brother Assad Masud. Brother Assad, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
It's an honor and a pleasure to have you, brother. And just to kind of share with our guests a little bit more about yourself so they can get to know you better. So Brother Assad is actually one of the founders of Arabic Unlocked. And Arabic Unlocked, what they're doing is they're leading the way for language learners to unlock the Arabic language. And they do this through a mobile app. They have learning programs, as well as ebooks that are ideal for second language learners. And today we're here to talk about the journey behind creating the app, the education company at Arabic Unlocked, and as well, all of the lessons learned along the way. So this is going to be a really insightful episode. We're going to have a lot to share with you guys. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of value that you're going to get out of it, inshallah. So Brother Assad, I love to start every episode with kind of sharing with people your background story of what is it that inspired you to even become an entrepreneur, to start your own business, and to start Arabic Unlocked.
Yeah, so firstly, Jazakallah khairan for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure.
And assalamu alaikum to everybody watching. It's a good question in terms of what got me into entrepreneurship. I can't even say the word. To be honest, it's always been a matter of probably since I was young, I've never really knew what I wanted to do. So I was always asked, what do you want to be when you're older? And I would probably every time give a different answer. We got to high school, we got to college. In college here, we apply. So I think our college is the equivalent of your university.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the end of high school. We had to apply for university at the time. And even then, everybody was kind of clear on where they wanted to go into and what field and what they wanted to become. I was still very unclear on that. I basically didn't know. Is that at that time, the only thing I knew for a fact is that I wanted to learn Arabic.
Right.
So I studied Arabic in the center of France, actually, in an institute in the center of France. Came back, still didn't know what I wanted to do. Started studying astrophysics at university. After a couple of months, realized, why am I doing astrophysics? I don't want to be doing this. I don't plan on going into this. And subhanAllah, from there, worked a couple of different jobs, tried a few different things, and honestly kind of just fell into this. Tried a few different ventures, did a bit of e-commerce online. It was when I sat down with a friend, my co-founder Ahmed, and we kind of spoke about, he'd been trying a few different things as well. We said, why don't we do something together? And that was kind of the start of the idea for Arabic Unlocked.
Mm-hmm. So what is it specifically about starting a company, teaching the Arabic language that motivated you? Because there's a lot of, Arabic teachers and essentially Arabic tutors online. So what is it for you that made you feel like, you know what, there's still a lack in this industry, or there's a lack in this market, and there's a gap that we want to fill? And what specifically was the gap that you found?
So the initial, where it actually started was we were focusing on younger children. So we saw a huge gap in the kind of kids Islamic education space. We found an app called, actually I'm not going to plug them because we don't want to promote it, but we found an app that was for the purpose of teaching the Bible. And it was huge, and it had like, I think 10 or 50 million downloads or something.
Right.
And when we were looking at the equivalent for teaching the Quran or teaching Arabic to Muslim kids, there were some apps, but they were very poorly made, very low quality. So that's actually where we started, focused on kids. But once we got the ball rolling, we realized, okay, this is going to be very expensive, not the most cost-effective thing to do if we're going to be making nasheeds and animations and all that kind of stuff. And then we saw the same problem with adults as well. So although initially the plan was to, and the plan still is to go back into younger age kids, we decided, okay, let's start by focusing on adults, the parents and that kind of stuff, and then we can progress back into kids later down the line.
Okay. And you have an interesting story with the Arabic language as well, right? And, you just mentioned a little part of it right now, but I want to dive into it. What is it specifically that even inspired you to fall in love with this Arabic language and to then want to teach it to others? Is there a specific moment or something that happened in your life that made you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, there's an accumulation of different things. So I remember from a very young age, my dad used to drag me to the Tarawih prayers during Ramadan. And I always used to just think, we stood here for like 2 hours and the Imam's reading and what is he saying? And especially during like the nights where the Imam would start crying and the person next to me would start crying. And I'm like, why is everybody crying? So that was planted in me from a young age. And then I think the time I actually decided, you know what, I'm going to learn Arabic is when I went to Umrah in 2007 or 2008. So I was quite young. I was still in high school at the time. And it was a similar thing. So it was actually during Ramadan that we went to Umrah. Same thing, stood there in Taraweeh, Imam's crying. And I remember specifically the guy next to me was absolutely in tears, bawling, crying. And I thought I want to be like him. I at least want to know why he's crying. Like, he's obviously understanding something that I'm not. So that's when I first decided that, you know what, I actually said to myself that next time I come back here, whenever that is, inshallah, I want to be able to understand what the Imam is saying.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started for me.
Okay, beautiful, mashallah. So it came from like almost like this desire to as you mentioned, not only connect with the Quran and what's being said, but also to understand it, to grasp it, and to really know what's being said, not just repeat the words or the syllables. And then you decided to go on to start Arabic Unlocked. What was the first thing that you decided to launch, to create this company, to create this business? It's two guys who got together. They're like, all right, we want to build this thing. You have this grand vision. Where did you start?
So my initial goal behind Arabic Unlocked, and the idea was because I had come from a non-Arab background. I didn't know any Arabic, and I did study Arabic, so I fully understood how hard it can be, what kind of things people are looking for that currently don't exist, and that kind of stuff. So the goal was kind of to make all the stuff that I wished existed when I started studying Arabic myself. So I believe the first thing we actually launched was a course, which has now evolved into our language mastery course, which is it's not actually a course on teaching Arabic. It's actually a course on how to learn Arabic. So we actually teach a lot of the principles to do with language learning and kind of motivation and maintaining your motivation, which is probably the biggest factor in deciding if you're going to pass or fail in succeeding at learning Arabic. And then we spoke a lot about specific language learning techniques that I'd learned from looking at how polyglots have managed to learn 7, 8, 9, 10 languages. So we actually developed a course on that first. And then, alhamdulillah, the feedback was really good. But people were just saying, okay, once we've done all this, where do we go to learn Arabic? And we thought, okay, maybe we should make a course teaching people Arabic now. So from there, then the ebooks followed, and then the actual academy, which is now the academy, followed.
Okay, I understand. And a lot of people want to create courses. They want to build these businesses where they are trying to teach someone how to achieve a certain goal, or how to overcome a certain problem, or solve a certain problem in their lives. And for a lot of the entrepreneurs and business owners that listen to this podcast, that might be one of their business ideas. What was your process that you had to go through to create these courses? How did you structure them? And what are maybe some tips or some advice that you can give to people who are listening to this, who are thinking of getting into the education business, right? Educating someone, helping teach them how to achieve a certain goal, how to learn something, a certain topic, etc.
Yeah, I think it starts from having a very deep understanding of what the problem your customer or your student is facing. For me, that was easy because I was previously the student, so I could relate very much to all the issues that they're facing, all the struggles. And I also understood what the solutions to them problems were because I'd experienced them. I'd had to find solutions in the past myself. I'd had to create them, or I'd had to go find them, or just settle for what already existed. But I knew what I wanted to exist at the time. So if you are looking to get into the education space, and this, to be honest, applies to any business, it starts with having a very deep understanding of what the problem is. And that's why a lot of the time it helps to be a user of the product. As they say, if you scratch your own itch, you end up building the best companies.
Right, definitely. So really the beginning is to really understand the problem at its core and really develop an understanding of the niche. What did you guys do to be able to accomplish that?
Yeah, so like I said, for me, it was easy because I'd come from that background and I'd studied Arabic as a non-native. And then after that, I'd gone on to teach Arabic before launching Arabic Unlocked for a number of years, probably 5 years I'd been teaching Arabic. And I saw students struggling with the same problems as me, and also some students struggling with completely new things that I wasn't aware of. Because everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. Some things I found easy, actually, other people really struggle with.
Right.
So if we're talking about Arabic, for example, grammar is an acquired taste. Some people really love and enjoy grammar, and some people absolutely hate it.
Right.
So making it easy for everybody was a challenge, because first you have to understand, right, these are the different type of students, these are the different ways that they learn, these are the different challenges that they face, and then you have to come up with solutions for all of them.
Right, definitely. And so then you've went on to also create an app, right? The Arabic Unlocked app, mashallah, which is something that you guys have now launched. So it's actually launched and it's ready to use. People can download it, they can benefit from it. What was that process like? Because a lot of people, when they look at creating thinking of creating an app, or I have this app idea, right? They get all excited, but then when it comes to, oh my God, I have to learn how to code or like hire an agency, and it starts to get very complex and overwhelming. So for you guys, what was your approach to building and launching your app?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So like you said, the app is one of them things that maybe looks a bit what's the word here? Maybe glamorous on the outside,
right?
But when you're actually doing it and when you're in the trenches, it's not glamorous at all. So
okay,
the process for us was we were hesitant on the idea of an app. We said, okay, there's some apps that already exist in this field, some for teaching Arabic, some for teaching languages in general. So we did question, was there a need specifically for this? But again, feedback from students in our courses and in the academy, and just from general market research, we found, okay, there's still a lot of things that these apps, although good in and of themselves, are not addressing and not fulfilling in terms of needs of users. So we thought, okay, we can definitely add value, and we're not just going to be making another app that already exists, and this is definitely going to be an addition to what's already out there. So once we'd agreed on that, then the actual process of making the app, it's not as hard as you might think, but it's also not as easy as you might think. Depends on what you currently think. So we're non-technical founders, so I'm not a programmer.
Right.
I have coded in the past. I can do some stuff, but I'm not an app developer. Likewise, Ahmed, my co-founder, he has a background in mechanical engineering and also in artificial intelligence, but he's also not a coder. So we had to go find somebody to code the app. We actually used an outsourced team to begin with. That itself was a challenge. Sorry, go on.
What does that process look like? Sorry to cut you off, but just to kind of, because that you're sharing like a beneficial tidbit that I know someone listening to this might be like, oh wait, how does that work? Like outsource? Did you guys go and interview a few agencies? Did you go on Google? Yeah. What was your process like?
Yeah, so like I said, if you want to break it down, there's really two options. You either do it yourself or you get somebody to do it.
Right.
So we had to find somebody to do it because we couldn't do it ourselves. So now in terms of who you're going to find, you're either going to find an individual, which you're going to hire in-house, or you're going to have an agency that you work alongside who you hire kind of outsourced to. So because we were bootstrapped, meaning we hadn't taken any outside investment, it's not wise to try and hire somebody that you don't have at least 12 months of cash to pay their wages. So we worked with an agency. There's pros and cons to both, but agencies have a lot of pros, providing you find the right one. So it's literally a matter of, like with anything, you just do a bit of research, a bit of Googling, make a short list, put up a job post. So we used Upwork, mainly Upwork. There were a couple of other ones, but nothing came off them. Put up a few posts, did a lot of research and kind of contacted a few people, had phone calls and conversations, and then shortlisted, and in the end you just have to pick one.
Right. And that process is scary for many entrepreneurs. When I talk to my students and when we talk about like outsourcing, processing, hiring, it always feels a little daunting. But after you went through it and you ended up launching the app, how was your experience? Do you feel like someone listening to this could go on websites like Upwork, put up a posting and interview and hire someone pretty easily? Or do you feel like it was a difficult task? Was it easier or harder than you thought?
Upon reflection, it's a lot easier than I initially thought. However, what I would say is, in terms of what maybe didn't go as well as could have gone, and this would be useful information for the listeners and for myself, if I could talk to myself maybe 2 years ago, is it's very different that you kind of feel inferior in this process when you're hiring someone. You think, oh, they're the agency, they're the experienced one. You kind of feel like it's a job interview. You have to realize you're the one interviewing them. And once the work commences, you're the one managing them and they're accountable to you. So if you need to set deadlines and demand things, then you need to do that. You're going to get a lot of these agencies as well. You're going to get out of them as much as you demand of them. They're not going to be
Right.
proactive most of the time in pushing for deadlines and pushing for more features and maximizing your investment essentially. So
Yeah.
that's something that it definitely took a while to kind of realize, wait a minute, I'm paying these guys, I'm hiring these guys, they work for us essentially. So
Yeah.
they're not the ones in, because we were kind of at their mercy for a while. They would say, sorry, we can't do this. Sorry, we're not going to do this. And we were like, okay, that's fine. We'll just change our plans. But you kind of need to put your foot down from the start.
Right, I understand completely. That's a good tip actually, because you might feel like, oh, because I don't have enough experience, I don't know what I can do and I can do. But that's where, as a business owner, you shouldn't be afraid to demand for what it is you're looking for, and eventually you'll find the right person to be able to deliver on that ask, right? So you went on to, alhamdulillah, go ahead and actually outsource, and you've created the app. What has been the challenges that you faced as an online education company, right? You're helping people learn the Arabic language, so one of the most complex languages in the world. How did you, or what kind of challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them in terms of education, in terms of trying to accomplish that goal with your students?
Yeah, again, very good question. I think this is still a kind of work in progress, but definitely some of the challenges is understanding users and their individual challenges. So like I said before, yeah, I can relate and I do understand quite well the challenges in general that users face, and obviously based on my experience, but everybody has their own first person subjective experience with these things. Everybody's at a different stage in life, they have different backgrounds, and kind of understanding that and figuring out how to help everybody is a challenge. And because we're an international company, we obviously have to then take into account people's backgrounds and where they're based, time zones, what their first language is. It's very different teaching somebody Arabic via English when English is their second language. So we found that to be a challenge. And inshallah, our plan is to kind of optimize that process and expand so that we're teaching people directly in their mother tongue. But for the time being, it's in English. So we have a lot of kind of Malaysian, Indonesians, people from Singapore, students who English is their second language. So now they're learning Arabic via English. So that is a challenge. But yeah, so kind of adapting to that and tailoring for the needs of our students has been a challenge. But alhamdulillah, we're trying to work on this actively every day and keep improving.
Right, inshallah, definitely. And I think I can attest to it as well. One of the challenges that we face as an education company when it comes to helping train and mentor our students is really trying to provide kind of like an environment where we can keep them motivated and inspired to continue doing the work. I think that is one of the biggest challenges when you have an education company, especially online, because you're not in a classroom, people are not showing up, right? So many times they have to go through the course on their own, and they have to show up to the online sessions, and many people, they have that motivation initially, but then it fades. And for us, it's always been one of our focuses is to try to find, okay, how can we constantly keep our students or clients or customers engaged, interested, motivated? And I think this is really one of the big questions that the online education space still has to solve, right? Yeah, and I think it's been a challenge for sure. But there are some ways that we found, like really reaching out personally to every single student, making sure that they understand that we're here to support them, checking in with them, keeping it fun, running challenges in our groups, giving prizes, things of that nature. For you, have you found that to be a challenge as well in your company, and have you found any techniques or strategies to try to overcome it?
Yeah, so yeah, what you're saying is spot on. I mean, online course completion rates are normally very, very low. Unfortunately, most people just purchase it with the intention to do it, procrastination kicks in, and then it never gets done. Because of the nature of our course, so some courses is more about getting from A to Z, kind of going through the process of the course, and then there's maybe not so much follow-up to do. Obviously, with us, it's a language. So you're learning a language, and that requires constant practice, use of the language, reviewing what you've learned, and so on and so forth. So, it's been very important to keep students engaged, keep students active. Right. Alhamdulillah, we've a number of different ways that we do that. So our course, we call it a hybrid course. So it's a self-paced course, meaning it's pre-recorded. All the lessons are readily available to study at your own pace. But we also then have a lot of live kind of support and tuition going on. So We run weekly live classes for the students where they can attend and get interaction with other students and with the tutors. And we also have a personal learner thread, which is essentially like a WhatsApp group between you and 3-4 of our tutors who are always on hand to kind of answer your questions and help you with whatever you're specifically struggling with. And students really enjoy that, really benefit from that, ask any questions that they have. And, you know, whenever they're struggling, they might be on a particular lesson that they're struggling with a concept, tutors are on hand to kind of help them with that.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, it's still a lot more work to be done to try and encourage those who are maybe not as active,
right,
to try and reel them back in and draw them back in. It's an ongoing struggle.
For sure. Yeah, that's one thing that we've noticed is really kind of keeping the students motivated. And that's one thing that you have to be very creative and be customer obsessed and trying to find solutions and ways to make that happen.
Yeah.
So right now, how many years has Arabic Unlocked been in operation? So from the moment you guys decided to launch to now, how many years have you guys been working on this?
So Arabic Unlocked, I think we were born around late 2019. So I think October 2019. So it's going on 2 years now.
All right, amazing, mashallah. And in those 2 years, is it still just you and your co-founder, or have you now slowly started to build a team, or is it just you both still working on most of it?
No, alhamdulillah, we have a team of around, including me and Ahmed, about 8 people now.
Mashallah, very nice. That's amazing. And what has been your experience kind of building a team culture and an environment, you know, for your team where they are aligned with your mission and your vision, right? And you're all working on the same goal.
Again, yeah, very good question. So I'm going to try and only say things. I'm going to say something theoretically, and then I'll say what we're actually doing. They don't always match up. So, yeah, alhamdulillah, that's been a learning process for us going from 2 to 8. There's been some chopping and changing along the way to try and get that right as well. But I think, yeah, team culture specifically is definitely one of them things that doesn't just happen. You have to actively work on it, be aware of it. It starts with, I'd say, hiring the right people. And there's a lot of talk about core values and, you know, writing down your core values, getting very clear on them and hiring according to them. We try to follow that framework. When we have followed it, it's helped. And when we've kind of strayed away from it, it's kind of come back to bite us.
Right.
So I would definitely recommend getting very clear on core values in a very concrete definition of the word. So not, you know, very wishy-washy kind of things you can't judge or measure. So one of our core values, for example, is open, honest, and clear communication. So we want people we don't care what your position is, we don't care who you are or who you're talking to. You should have the comfort to speak your mind, say what's on your mind, whilst in combination with another one of our core values, which is being respectful. So say what you want to say, but let's not start fighting, let's not start arguing and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So yeah, building team culture, I think, started with hiring the right people according to their values, monitoring people, because you can only know so much about a person until you start working with them. So we normally have like a probationary period of 3 months at the beginning where we get to know people well, and the times that we've kind of actively monitored how they're doing according to the core values has worked out, and the times we've been a bit lax and not paid too much attention to it and just being like task focused, again, has come back to bite us. So I definitely recommend that with regards to team culture and then just actively working on it. There's other things I can say, but we don't do any of them. So
right. And it's interesting what you said though, because, you know, it's like a very delicate balance to switch from a solopreneur, someone who's working on their business on their own. And probably many of the listeners of this podcast are in that position where then they, you know, transitioning to having a team and then, you know, developing that. And as you mentioned, it's not always easy to be fully focused on monitoring what your team is doing, because that means you're taking away time from what you should be doing. And as an entrepreneur, especially one that's starting their own business from scratch, you have the tendency to want to, you know, continue pushing forward, you know, as fast as possible and to continue, you know, reaching the next goal, the next milestone. And at the same time, dedicating time to, you know, monitor your team, support your team, and, you know, make sure that they're on the right track and they're aligned with your mission and values. That is also time consuming. And so switching from that solopreneur mindset where you do everything on your own to now recognizing that nurturing other people, nurturing your team to do their best and be at their best is part of that, is now part of like your role.
Yeah.
And a big part of it, there's an adjustment, right? There's an adjustment, and it's not always an easy adjustment. It's not always clear.
No, yeah, 100%. I think a couple of things which help in that regard is, so if you're hiring somebody, essentially it goes back to that concept of outsourcing. So you're taking an area of responsibility. When you start a company, you're everything. So you're the customer support person, you're the tech person, you're the designer, you're everything. When you're going to hire somebody, you're taking a set of responsibilities and you're handing it to them. So one thing that's very good to do is, and there's a very good book that covers this kind of framework, which is the E-Myth. So the E-Myth talks about kind of compartmentalizing different responsibilities within the business. So this is customer support, this is product development, and building an organizational chart of all the different roles, because every company is slightly different. So if you're making bread, it's going to be different than if you're building an app. But it's just as important in both scenarios. So building out this organizational chart, and then in the beginning, you put your name against everything. So you are all of them positions. Mm-hmm. Then when you go to hire somebody, you need to understand, right, who am I hiring and why am I hiring them? Am I hiring them for one role here? Is it multiple roles? Is it half the roles? Like what am I hiring here? Because then it will dictate whether you look for somebody specialized or somebody who's a generalist. Right. The other thing which helps is, again, this is a two-sided coin. So you want to give up them responsibilities, but sometimes it's difficult to do that because you feel like, you know what, I could do a better job than this person. So you end up micromanaging, or you end up just, constantly monitoring them, or you end up going in and doing it yourself. Why did you hire them then? What was the point? So you definitely need to hire people who can do a better job than you, or at least as good as you, but ideally better, because then you'll have much more confidence in them. But to do that, you need to know what you're hiring them for. So again, we had these issues where we hired people who were really good at one thing, but in reality, we needed them to do 3 things. And when they were really bad at the other 2, we started having problems. So having that clarity beforehand will make the process a lot easier and save you from a lot of the mistakes.
Definitely, 100%. I think that's where preparation is everything, right? And it's the same even in business. When you think of launching your business, when you think of, coming up with your business plan, coming up with an offer, a program, a course, a product that you want to sell, a lot of people think the challenge is, the launch, it's the marketing. Actually, the most important part really is the preparation. It's, as you mentioned here, in number 1, getting clear on your values, getting clear on your mission, communicating that to them, ensuring that they are the right fit. And then also, when you think of your business plan, your product, understanding your customers, understanding your niche, what is the problems that they face, what are the challenges they face, and how you can help them overcome it. So there's really a recurring theme here of developing a deep understanding of your customers and as well of your business as a whole, so that you can accomplish those tasks efficiently, whether it's hiring, whether it's selling, creating products, all of it ties into that, right?
Yeah. And it's also actually just to add a final point that I forgot to mention. Yeah. So when we're talking about getting clarity on the organizational structure, and it's very important to then understand what your own role is within that structure. So like I said, in the beginning, you're everything, but your objective is to either fall into one of them positions. So maybe you're a tech guy, you want to be the lead developer, that needs to be your position. You're going to have to outsource the rest of the stuff. So you're going to need a customer support guy. You might even need a project manager or a CEO to come in. For most founders, that is going to be the role that they need to fill. So they need to fill in that CEO role. And then you need to hire everybody underneath that. But understanding what that CEO role is very important. So you're not doing the day-to-day stuff. You're not working on the tasks. You're not in the trenches so much. Actually, what's the most important thing is getting the most out of your team. So everybody else's output is your output. Yeah. Don't think, I need to do this thing. No, you need to make sure everybody's doing what they need to be doing, so that the whole company as a whole moves forward. And then you can make better decisions and you can kind of guide them where they need to go. That's something, again, that we really only recently started to get a lot of clarity on, kind of enforce, because it's very tempting when you've been doing stuff for a long time to just jump back in and start doing it. But as I said, as you're expanding and as you're growing the team, you need to understand where your role is within that team and what everybody else's role is.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's mashallah. This is that part, by the way. I think we we need to kind of cut that and share that, because that in itself, if someone just remembers this from the entire episode, if they just remember that, this is a game changer in your business. If you specifically what you said of, your everyone else's output in your team becomes your output is so very true, right? And that, as a manager, as a leader, and there's a really great book about that. It's one of the leaders in IBM. He wrote a book on
high output management.
Yes, high output management. Thank you, high output management. I read that book, and it's a really great book. And he mentions in that book, something along those lines, right? Of, as a manager, as a leader, your output is essentially the output of your entire team, yourself and everyone else who, essentially reports to you. And so the more you can nurture them, the more you can support them, the more effective they are, the more effective you are, right? Because it becomes, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, essentially, which is really, really interesting, subhanAllah, how that works. So, and I think it could even be, chalked up to, as Muslims, we know this, but really like barakah, right? Like when a lot of people get together and they're on a mission, and it's a noble mission, and it's one where we're trying to achieve something that is halal, that is good, that is helping people, progress or improve in a certain way, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can hopefully, try to attain that barakah together, right? And when that barakah starts to flow in between a group of people that are working together, that's when the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give, Brother Assad, to entrepreneurs who wish to start their own business? Now that you've been in business for 2 years, what are some tips that you'd give for someone who's thinking of getting started on this journey? Something that they can maybe remember, they can hold on to, they can look out for. I know we've already given so much advice, but something for aspiring entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million and one things I could probably say, but it's maybe not going to be the most succinct answer either. But one thing again, is kind of the theme of what we've been discussing, but clarity is extremely important. If you are going to go into business on something, you normally want to do something that, obviously, the reason you go into business is to make money, fundamentally. But that can only take you so far. So you normally want to go in with the mindset that, right, if I worked on this thing for 5 years, 10 years, and made no money whatsoever, would I still be happy? Would I still be content with the effort I've put in and where I was trying to head, even if I didn't get there? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't reward you for the end result. He rewards you for the intention. So if you are doing something that you can keep your intentions pure throughout, regardless of how your motivation is going up and down, then that's going to give you the best chance of persevering when times get tough. Again, I don't want to do a whole talk on this separate. This is literally a separate talk I could give, but a good framework to kind of come up with this is the ikigai concept, if you've heard of it before. If you Google it, literally, if you just write ikigai, Ikigai in Google, and you go on images, you'll see this Venn diagram with 4 circles. So you have what you enjoy, what you're good at, what you believe in as a cause, and what you can get paid for. I think getting clarity on these 4 areas is extremely important. So know what you're good at, know what you enjoy, and likewise know the opposite. Know what you're not good at, know what you don't enjoy, know what you believe in as a cause, right? So what change do you believe should exist in the world? Everybody's going to have their own causes that they believe in and that they follow, and it's going to be more meaningful to if my mother's passed away of cancer, then I'm going to care a lot more about cancer treatment and awareness and all this kind of stuff than somebody who hasn't experienced that. And then the final thing is, right, what business could I make off the back of this? For me, the Arabic Unlocked is my ikigai, essentially.
Right.
I know what I'm good at. I believe in this as a cause. I absolutely enjoy business in general and also teaching Arabic and that kind of stuff. And then off the back of it, we've tried to build a company. So yeah, getting clarity and building a business which is your ikigai is one of the ways to ensure that you have longevity in the effort, regardless of what the outcome is.
That's a beautiful thing, brother, and I really like it. And you know what? I think I'm going to research that, because it's the first time I hear about this concept. And I've actually been to Japan, and I love everything Japanese. So I can't believe this is the first time I hear about this. So I'm definitely going to research it and read up on it, because I completely agree. I think when you're aligned, when you find that purpose that can drive you, and when you find that alignment, then everything else starts to fall into place, and you really have a better chance of committing long term than if you were to just come up with an idea and say, oh, this is going to make me a lot of money, I think I should do it because it's going to be very profitable. Instead of coming up with something that you feel like, oh, I'm passionate about this cause or about solving this problem or helping people achieve this thing or this goal.
Yeah.
Definitely. So we're going to dive into some audience Q&A, inshallah, in the next few minutes. But before we do, there's a question that I ask every single guest that appears on this podcast, and I'd love to share it with you as well. So, Brother Assad, if you could meet Assad from 2 years ago in 2019, and you could tell him one thing, okay, so no cheating, that he could hold on to, kind of like a mantra, something that he could remember as he goes through this journey of building and launching Arabic Unlocked and creating this company. What would that one thing be? What would you tell him?
You should have told me this before, so I could have thought more about this.
But no, it's a surprise question. It has to be.
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, yeah, I suppose if I just abruptly met myself on the street, what would I say? Honestly, it would probably be something along the lines of to not lose track of why I'm doing all this in the first place. The reason is it's very easy to start justifying things along the way in terms of becoming imbalanced. So you know what? When you start off, you have certain goals, right? I'm gonna give this amount to charity. I'm gonna help change this, that, and the other. And sometimes you kind of use the ends to justify the means. So you know what? I won't go to the masjid today to pray Dhuhr. I'll just carry on working. And inshallah, in 6 months' time, when things are a bit better, I can start going back to the masjid, for example. 6 months become 12 months, becomes 1 year. And before you know it, that temporary sacrifice has become your daily habit. So I think it's very important to not allow the end goal to justify the means in any way. Just don't lose track of why. At the end of the day, all of this is to please Allah. Whatever the business is, whatever you're doing. So why do anything that is contrary to that in any way whatsoever?
Wow, that's beautiful, man. I just got the chills. MashaAllah, that's beautiful, man. Because that hit me very, very strongly as well. And when you put it that way, right? A lot of times I could think of so many moments from like, oh, let me delay prayer to the last minute. Let me, do this and do that. Because I'm like, I got to get this done. I got to complete this work. I got to complete this task.
Yeah.
And to take a moment and pause and kind of reflect and think, wait, the reason why we're doing this anyway is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why would we, sacrifice that, put it to the side to work on the business? I've never thought of that before, which is surprising. We've had this podcast for over a year now, maybe probably 2 at this point. No one has ever said this before, and this really hit me like a ton of bricks. So jazakallah khair for sharing that, brother. That was very impactful. I appreciate that.
Just to add to that, actually, on the business point of view, this actually applies in business as well, because people will justify all sorts of things in business. They'll make false claims in their advertising. They will, rip people off. They'll steal from people, and that applies even more, because the task stuff, that's between you and Allah, but this stuff's between you and people. And that stuff's going to come back to haunt you in the day of judgment. So you need to be even more careful when it comes to that.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely, brother. I completely agree. And that's why I think it's important every time we feel like our intention is lacking, every time we feel like we've lost track of our purpose, we've lost track of that alignment, it's important to sit down and actually, again, remap out what is my why am I doing this, what is the goal that I want to achieve, what is the best way for us to get there. And it's an exercise that I find myself needing to do more than once every year, just sitting down and then realigning myself with my goals. Because a lot of times, as you go through the hustle and bustle of business and you're in the trenches, sometimes it's hard to zoom out and then look at the far off destination. So sometimes we have to take the time to do that. It's important. So we're going to dive into some audience Q&A, inshallah. There's a few questions that came in from our viewers today that we'll answer. So one of them is a great question here from one of our listeners on Facebook. They're asking, how many hours of classes does it take for a non-native to learn the basics? So I'm sure you guys have probably a basics course that you can share here.
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer because there's a number of factors. So how do we define basics? What's your current level of Arabic? And what's your background? So it's very different than if I was talking to somebody who, for example, speaks Urdu, because Urdu has a lot of overlap with Arabic in terms of the script, in terms of the sounds. Most of the letters are the same, give or take. Compared to somebody who knows absolutely like zero, and their mother tongue has zero overlap with Arabic. So there's no one number. For if we're defining basics as a letter, we do have a Arabic letters unlock course. Again, how many hours? The course is self-paced, so we have it at 3 modules. I think the total number of class hours might be 15 or 20, broken down across all the lessons. But again, how many times you're going to repeat a specific lesson is entirely up to you. Again, this is a very common question because people are very impatient. So they just want to know, how long can I do it in? Let's get it over and done with. Again, it's not so much about that. It's more about the process. As long as you're getting closer and closer to understanding the Book of Allah, then fine. Nobody wants to be spending hundreds of hours and making no progress.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the core kind of principles behind Arabic Unlocked existing, is like we don't want to waste anybody's time in the learning process. We feel like a lot of the resources do that. A lot of courses do that. So that's absolutely adverse to what we're trying to do. But yeah, there's no specific number, nor is it super important to kind of fixate on that number either.
Definitely. There's another question from our viewers here, and it says, Arabic considered to be one of the hardest languages for English speakers to learn? Which is an interesting question. I mean, through your research, what have you found in terms of Arabic as a language? Is it difficult? Is it one of the higher difficulty languages to learn?
So from a perception point of view, it's definitely perceived as being one of the most difficult languages. Normally because of, there's a couple of differences between English. So the script is completely different. It's actually right to left instead of left to right. There's a number of sounds that don't exist in English, that exist in like ayn and kha and ghain and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think statistically, in terms of studies, yeah, it is considered to be more difficult for like an English speaker compared to an Urdu speaker, like I said, because of the overlap. But all of this is, again, irrelevant. If people can climb Everest in slippers, in the case of Wim Hof, if you've heard of him, the Iceman, I think he climbed, he didn't reach the top, but he almost climbed the whole of Everest in slippers and shorts. If you can do that, you can learn Arabic. Like, it's not that hard.
Definitely, 100%, brother. It's all about commitment, right? Commitment. How committed are you to actually achieving that goal? And we'll take one more question. What are the tips and tricks you can share for learning Arabic vocabulary? So I'm sure there's some in the course. So if you guys want to check out Arabic Unlocked, to definitely go ahead and do that. But is there anything you could share with us on the fly?
Yeah. So the first thing I say is download the app, because the app actually incorporates this. But when it comes to learning vocab, there's actually a study on spaced repetition. So spaced repetition is where you space out how often you will review vocab that you've learned. So normally if I said to you, let's learn the meaning of a new word, I don't know, shajara means tree. You're going to repeat that again and again and again and try and make it stick. And then you probably won't review it for a while. And what that does is very little. So it, in the very short term, will make you remember the word. Maybe by the end of the day, you've already forgotten it. So there's a study on how, by spacing out the repetitions just before you forget. So let's say this is like your memory of the word. As it hits down here, if you then review the word, it will bounce back up. And then this time it will decrease a lot slower and a lot less. So by spacing out how often you review the word, it slowly transitions into your long-term memory. And you can Google this spaced repetition, and there's studies done on how this improves your kind of recollection of vocabulary. The system for that is actually built into the app. So you don't have to worry about when do I need to review it and how often and all that kind of stuff.
Right, that makes sense. So what can people expect actually if they download the app itself? So is it that they can go and sign up to courses? Do you guys have kind of like lessons that they can take on the fly? What can people expect if they want to go download Arabic Unlocked? And is it available on iOS and Android? Is it on both?
Yeah, iOS and Android. So we have two main ways that we help people learn Arabic. We have our app and our academy. The app is more for learning in a fun way, on the go, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It does have a full curriculum starting from letters all the way to sentences and so on. But it is in very, very small increments, bite-sized lessons, and it's a lot more gamified and fun. Somebody who wants to then go on to commit to studying Arabic, learning a little bit more of an academic fashion, has a bit more time and resources to commit to learning Arabic, then we will move them onto our academy, where we have our tutors and our courses and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd recommend everybody download the app and tell all your friends and family to download it, because it can help literally anybody at any level. And then those who are looking to get serious about learning Arabic and move on to the next level, then look into our online academy.
Awesome, brother. So I was actually just about to ask that. So where can people go? Where should we take them to if they want to go ahead and get started with your programs, inshallah? So there's the app. And then what is your website so we can share it as well with our listeners?
Website is just arabicanlocked.com.
Beautiful.
Same with the app. If you just go on your phone and just type Arabic Unlocked on the Play Store or the App Store, you'll find the app. And the app, the academy, everything is inshallah it's on the website. It should be straightforward to find.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and make sure to drop that in the episode notes as well, so that you guys have the link. So check out the episode notes or the caption wherever you're watching or listening to this, inshallah. If not, just go on the App Store, whether you have iPhone or Samsung or Android, and search Arabic Unlocked, guys. Give it a download and check it out, or go on arabicanlocked.com. If one of your goals has been to learn Arabic and you've always felt that you don't really have the schedule or the room to work with a live tutor, you don't really right now know where to start, I think this is a great opportunity that you have at your hands to be able to go and benefit from these classes and these lessons that they have available. So go ahead and check it out, and definitely let me know what you think. So send me a DM and let me know what your thoughts are about the app, or even reach out to Masud, Arabic Unlocked on Instagram, and let him know, inshallah, what you feel about their programs. So, is there anything else that we should share with our listeners today, or should we leave it at that, to go download the app and go on the website?
Yeah, I think if they do that, then they'll get more than enough of an idea.
Awesome. Beautiful. So go ahead and do that, guys. And again, Jazakallah khair, Brother Assad, for joining me today. Honestly, this discussion has taken many different directions, some that I didn't expect, like the importance of building a team, and even the importance of knowing your why, and aligning with your mission and values. So many interesting discussions, mashallah, so much to benefit from. So I really appreciate you joining me on this podcast and sharing your experience with us today. Jazakallah khair.
Well, yeah, appreciate you for having us, inshallah.
Appreciate you, brother. And you guys know the drill. So inshallah, if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoy this podcast, take 1 minute of your time, if possible, if you have that in your schedule, to just give us a subscribe and rate the podcast. Let us know what you feel about it. Are you enjoying it? Did you get some value? And of course, follow us on your favorite social platform. We're everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And send me a DM. Let me know what your thoughts are about the podcast. Give us a follow, and just interact with us. We always want to hear more about what you guys think about these episodes and how we can improve them, and always bring you value, inshallah. And of course, if you'd like help with starting your own business and taking your business to the next level, you can book a call with us for free. That's going to be ummahpreneur.com/call. We'll also drop the link in the comments. It's ummahpreneur.com/call if you want to speak to me or my team to get help on starting or growing your own business, inshallah. Until then, we'll see you next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.